Glory to Jesus Christ. Tomorrow, August 6th, we celebrate the great feast of Transfiguration. You can see behind me the icon of the feast when Christ took Peter, James, and John up to Mount Tabor, and then they saw him transfigured before them and speaking with Moses and Elijah. Last year, I remember vividly when I preached about this that I had been struck by something that I read about the feast and something that was very important theologically. So I wanted to share that again this year if you forgot from last year or if for some reason you weren't able to hear that, because I think it is so important to consider. And it starts with the word transfiguration. It means that there's a change, and the Greek word is metamorphosis. Something changes from being something to something else. So if we think of that word and we think of the event that took place on Mount Tabor, we can ask the question, who is transfigured? And it might be a very simple, quick answer to respond to say, well, Christ was transfigured. But if we really think about that and put it in theological terms, that's not possible. Because Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's always the same, so he can't be changed. He can't be, to use the word, transfigured. And so I read last year, and these are the words that I want to share with you from a great saint of the church, St. Gregory Palamas, who talked about this particular theme in a sermon. So these are St. Gregory's words. Listen to them very closely because they're very important and very precise theologically. He says, "We believe that at the Transfiguration, Jesus manifested not some other sort of light, but only that which was concealed beneath his fleshly exterior. This light was the light of the divine nature, and as such, it was uncreated and divine. So also in the teachings of the fathers, Jesus Christ was transfigured on the mount, not taking upon himself something new, nor being changed into something new, nor something which formerly he did not possess. Rather, it was to show his disciples that which he already was, opening their eyes and bringing them from blindness to sight. For do you not see that eyes that can perceive natural things would be blind to this light?" And so in these words of St. Gregory, we can really hear that it's not Christ who's changed. He didn't become something new. He always was this. He uses those words that the light that Peter, James, and John saw was concealed beneath his fleshly exterior. So it wasn't something that people just walking down the street would have seen. It was something that was made manifest to them by God himself. And this light was the light of the divine nature, that it was uncreated and divine. And St. Gregory would tell us that Peter, James, and John, they saw the uncreated and divine light of Christ. We hear that in Psalm 103, Psalm 104, that he's clothed in light as with a garment. And Christ is seen by Peter, James, and John being clothed in light, that uncreated light of God in his divinity. So it's not Christ that's changed. They just see him for who he is. St. Gregory uses these words. He says that he opened their eyes, bringing them from blindness to sight, that they were able to really see and to see Christ for who he is. So it's Peter, James, and John who are really transfigured on Mount Tabor. They become different. Now they have seen the uncreated light. And so it's possible for that to happen to us as well. It might not, but it's possible. And that's one of the great teachings of St. Gregory Palamas, is that it is possible to be able to see that uncreated light of Christ. And so hopefully on this feast day, as we think about it and reflect and contemplate on it, it will be us who are changed. And because as we go through life, we might even give lip service to the fact that, well, Jesus Christ is God, he became man. We can say those words kind of over and over again. But on this feast, we can say that we saw it. as Peter, James, and John did. And it's so important also, the timing of when this feast happens, as Christ comes down from Mount Tabor, and Peter, James, and John, they wanted to stay there. They wanted to be with the uncreated light. But he came down from the mountain and went to his crucifixion. And so it's important, the timing of when this happens as well, for the apostles to be able to be brought into literally the light. And so on this feast day, like I said, I think it's a wonderful thing to contemplate that Christ himself does not change. And St. Gregory's words are, again, they're so precise, that Christ is not something new, not something different that's seen. He's just seen for who he is. And Peter, James, and John coming down from that mountain, they had to be changed by this. And it's ultimately they who begin the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ and his divinity. So I pray that all of us have a blessed feast, that we can be transfigured on this day, that for a moment we can lay aside all the cares of the world and think that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who was there from the very beginning, who created everything, became one of us. And that's what Peter, James, and John would have seen first, him as one of us. And then they were able to see him as being God himself. And so I pray again that we have a blessed feast, and that in some way that we all are transfigured as well. Glory to Jesus Christ.